Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, and today we are chatting with Keenan McVey of Blue Goose Farm in Ontario, Canada. Keenan, alongside his wife Ashley, run this small farm, and along with it, a really interesting in-town farm store that is a little different from what you might think of as a farm store and has proved to be an invaluable marketing option for them. Keenan's roots are in the culinary world, and the farm was also started with another chef from the area, who some of you may know, named Matty Matheson of the excellent show The Bear. Keenan tells us that whole origin story, as well as details the technical stuff about how the gardens were created and how they are maintained. So let's do it. All right, Keenan McVey, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
I'm super excited to have you. This is going to be a lot of fun. So first, maybe just go ahead and introduce yourself and your farm. Talk a little bit about like where you are, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so my name's Keenan McVey. I'm the farm manager, co-owner of Blue Goose Farm, which is in Ridgeway, Ontario. And we're like the very bottom of the Niagara region in Ontario. We're right on the north coast of Lake Erie, about 25 minutes to the Peace Bridge border with Buffalo. So pretty close to the States, just for kind of geographical context for the listeners. I run the farm with my wife, Ashley, and co-own it with my really close friend, Matty Matheson, who some of you guys may have heard of. We're in our fifth season of the farm. We started in 2020. The project kind of started in 2020. There was some hiccups there with COVID and the pandemic, and we'll talk about it later. Some silver linings there too with that. We're first generation farmers, chefs who became farmers, and we're still figuring it out. It's been a long journey, and I think we've kind of turned the page, and I can kind of feel like I can call myself a farmer now. I'm at that stage. It took a while for me to feel confident enough to say that, but it's been a wild ride, and we're happy to be here.
Talk a little bit about that journey. Like, I'm curious, I love that sort of, exploring that idea of like what you were doing before and how that led into farming. Can you talk a little bit about, the culinary stuff and how that led into farming?
Totally. So I was cooking for about 14 years beforehand. It was my first job. Started dishwashing and then worked my way up through kitchens. Basically my whole life, it's all I ever did. Worked as a butcher for a little bit as well, but food has like been at the center of my life and my career. I'm like one of those food obsessed people. It's literally what I think about all day, every day. I was working in Toronto, kind of towards the end of my cooking career. Had a project that I was working on that kind of went sour, and it was kind of like the last straw for me. Like a lot of your listeners probably know, it's not the easiest industry to work in, especially kitchens. It's long hours, which isn't dissimilar from farming, but it's, you're kind of trapped in the steel cage for 14, 16 hours a day. And I was kind of at a point where I was like, I think I need to change a little bit up in my life. I don't know if I want to be necessarily leaving food or disregarding food, because it's really all I know and it's all I think about. But my wife was ready as well to be kind of getting out of the city and for us to kind of turn a new leaf, hopefully start a family soon and, kind of put roots down. It didn't really feel too possible in Toronto at the time. It's such an expensive city and, make a lot of money cooking. If anybody was unaware of that, it's not the most lucrative business. So we decided, we were going to get out of the city, and we ended up moving to Niagara. And while this was going on, I was talking really closely with my good friend, Matty, who's a chef and worked in Toronto, as well. And, he's always a big supporter of mine at these restaurants that I worked at. One of the last ones I used to work at, he'd come in all the time, and there was like a little kitchen window that looked into the past, and he would always pop his head in and talk to me and my friends, and very encouraging and very supportive, and a big fan of myself and my style of cooking. And when he knew that I was ready to make a change, I think he was at a kind of a point in his life where he was starting to, turn a leaf and, like kind of bet on himself. And we started talking, kind of right place, right time, and started helping him out with a few projects he was working on, and ended up going to his house, which is out here in Ridgeway, right near Fort Erie. It's another kind of major city near us. And I was helping him with his second cookbook, and I saw the property and I was just like, oh my God, dude, this is unbelievable. It's a beautiful property. He's got about 15 acres, and I've always kind of struggled thinking about like how the conversation went. He says one thing, I say I went another way, but I feel like it was me who said you should have a farm here, and he said, okay, go for it. Let's see you do it. And it's always something I've wanted to do. I did some woofing back in my early 20s across Canada. Not so much to learn about farming, but more so to kind of see Canada. But I ended up, loving it very much. And it's funny how it kind of played into this new part of my life. And yeah, it kind of just snowballed from there. We just started talking about it, like what a small farm would look like in that area, what we would do, who we would, service, restaurants and things like that, and, other projects that we could be involved in. And then, we made a business plan, I drew up this massive, elaborate farm, with no experience, bigger than the farm that I'm operating right now. And then COVID came, kind of, turned off the taps financially for everybody. And Matty, who was the investor in the farm, he was like, okay, I don't know if I can quite take this risk right now, which was completely understandable. So we put it on pause. And then in the spring of 2020, in April, he had a little bit more money come in on a project he was working on here in town. And he said, you know what, if we don't do something with this idea now, we're not going to do it. And I love that guy forever for saying that and kind of lighting the fire, because he was right. So we started a much smaller plot right next to his house, which we still have now. We call it the Little Goose. It's about 3,500 square feet. And that's where I taught myself how to farm, basically. There's 22 little 10-foot beds in there, the 10, 12-foot beds. They're kind of all over the place right now, but they're 30 inches. So I was kind of teaching myself how to work on a 30-inch bed. And we grew everything. Like everything we wanted to grow. I had already ordered the seeds before COVID hit. So we were sitting on like an unbelievable amount of seeds, and, more than we could ever, plant in a 3,500 square foot garden. But that was my first go at it in that summer of 2020. And, it was a big success. We grew a ton of food, gave it out to a lot of our friends in the city and restaurants. And then the following year in 2021, we started what we call the Big Goose now, which is like our main farm, which is just down at the end of the property, further away from the house, more close to the woods. It's been amazing. It's been the greatest experience of my life. One of the hardest things I've ever done, but definitely the most rewarding. And my wife will say the same thing too. We mainly service, at the beginning, we were mainly servicing restaurants, because I didn't really know how to service a market, like a farmer's market or a CSA program. Coming in with absolutely, no experience, I was, unsure if I was going to be able to fill a market table or especially fill CSA boxes. I had no idea how long it took things to grow, how to time all these staggered successions. It scared the crap out of me. But I knew a lot of people in the city and that were eager for good vegetables, and we were growing a lot of good vegetables of cool varieties. So that was our first in. And we just started calling up our friends in the city who have restaurants and being like, hey, we have, 60 pounds of these beautiful cylindra beets. They're, it's a 10-foot bed, so they're done. So does anybody want them? And yeah, they were all incredibly supportive, especially around that COVID period too. Everybody was like super hungry to support everyone, and people were doing all these cool new projects, at home, and all these small businesses kind of popping up at this time when so much was failing. So it was cool to have something for everyone to be excited about.
And is that still kind of what you're doing? Is it primarily like restaurants, chefs, or have you branched out to farmers markets and stuff too?
Well, definitely still servicing the restaurants, all the same restaurants that we were servicing when we first started. Upwards of 11. I mean, we've hit like 16 restaurants in one delivery, which I've sworn never to do again. That was way too much. But there's probably like 8 of them that are kind of our core accounts. But yeah, we still service all of them. But our main market now, which has been our main market over the last 2 years, is our farm store, which we opened up in town. It's only about 4 minutes from our farm. It was like this kind of like abandoned little shed right next to one of Matty's restaurants, which is here in town. And we did a pop-up farmers market in the courtyard of his restaurant in 2023. And it was a huge success. I was kind of nervous about us doing a market here because I didn't know how many people were going to turn out. It's a very small town. People are really quiet and kind of keep to themselves a little bit. But, right when we did it, right before we opened, there was like a lineup through the parking lot for people to come in, show their support. They were very eager to kind of see what we had been up to because we had been posting online and stuff, and a lot of the locals knew that we were in town, but we were then bringing all of our vegetables to Toronto, which felt unfair. Like I was always wanting to get it to the community, but I just didn't know how we were going to do that. But the day we did that market, it felt like we had brought a water truck to the desert. People were very hungry for it and very enthusiastic, and the reception was amazing. And then we looked over to our left when we were at the market, and there was like this little shed, and it was on the property owned by the same landlords. And we honestly just opened up the window and walked in, and we were like, hey, well, let's do something here. This is kind of perfect. So it's a little 500 square foot shed, basically. It was like a hair salon before.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will get some of the details of how you all do that farm shop, exactly how it works. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Ohio Earth Food. So you got your soil tested or need your soil tested, it's time to contact Ohio Earth Food. Since 1972, they have been growers' trusted source for organic soil amendments to apply before you plant to prevent those deficiency symptoms that limit production. Their knowledgeable staff have all been a part of certified organic operations and can help you choose the best products for your soil and deliver or ship them right to your farm. With locations in Northwest Ohio and just north of Madison, Wisconsin, Ohio Earth Food wants to be your partner for organic inputs. Don't count on luck this year. Start your seeds in the Seed Catapult potting soil and put their Revita fertilizers in your beds, and rest assured that your plants will have all the nutrients, stimulants, and energy for whatever comes their way. Feed your soil and let your soil feed the plants. Visit them at ohioearthfood.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary with 48 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, a poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic, non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 26NOTILL, all caps, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. That's highmowingseeds.com. All right, back to the show. All right, so Keenan, you were talking a little bit about sort of how the farm store came to be. Can you kind of flesh that out for us a little bit? Like give us a little bit about how you developed it and kind of how it works now?
Yeah, definitely. So we didn't really have a plan when we first walked into the space. We just saw this perfect size kind of little spot that was right in town. We just had this very successful market next door with the locals coming in. We sold out super fast. And we just kind of said, let's do it. And, kind of swallowed and dove in. we had to do a lot of work kind of rebuilding the space. We didn't It would have been easier to tear the whole thing down, but with city permits and stuff like that, we weren't quite allowed to do that. So we basically tore it down to the studs and then just rewrapped it with like board and batten, kind of the way like it looks a lot similar to our barn at the farm. And yeah, it's been quite the learning curve trying to figure out how to best, supply the store and like what people are really going for. Obviously, you kind of figure it out as you go, the supply and demand aspect of it all. But we last year, our first year of it, was kind of difficult for me to try and figure out, especially the crop plan to how to service this store alongside our restaurants who take, quite a bit of produce all at once, and then to service the store, which, we treat it kind of like a farmer's market table. We have a big, beautiful harvest table in the center of the store, and then a few open air fridges, and then a few like shelves for dry goods and things like that. And we treat that table kind of like you would at a farmer's market. At the beginning, we were just kind of like piling high, not really organizing things too much. And, things were flying and it looked very promising. But then as we kind of went on, we figured out our style and what people are attracted to. So now that table is, setting up that table in the morning can take like an hour at least. It's just like a big dining room table, but we've found that the people and the customers really respond when we spend a lot of time making it look super beautiful. It looks almost like a dining room table just filled with baskets and crates and stuff like that. The more we take our time presenting it, it's almost like a dish of food. The people come in, they eat with their eyes like immediately. They want to stick around a little bit longer. They'll have some conversations. We can talk to them about what's exciting us. Doesn't feel so much like a farmer's market where some people are kind of coming in just trying to fill their bags and get out as fast as they can. We bring in fresh cut flowers from the farm as well. My wife Ashley, she runs that little cut flower garden that we have, which is our original little plot called the Little Goose. So there's fresh flowers coming in. We dry them as well. We make provisions from all of our things that we grow at the farm. We make, different vinegars from, some of the byproduct of this, some of the things that we have, like lovage stems. When we bunch lovage for the restaurants, we'll cut off all the stems, soak those in some rice wine vinegar and a few other things, make a nice like infusion, bottle that up. We have a big wall of them, of like green garlic, tomato leaf vinegar, lovage vinegar, chamomile vinegar, all these kind of little flavor accents that, we can then have a discussion with the customer of like, what's on the table that's going to go great with that provision. We also do like seasoned butters. We make this farm tea that rotates throughout the year, like this really refreshing iced tea, some of the flowers and some of the herbs that we grow. My wife makes like soaps and, room sprays, hand balms and salves and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of like endless. We've like really realized the potential for like, the farm isn't like, it's not a complete closed loop because we do bring in things from outside, but we very much realized that we don't need to bring in as much when we have the ability and the ingredients on hand to make things very special and unique, and people respond to that very well.
With the bringing stuff in, is that taking up a substantial amount of your time to like organize that, or is that just kind of piecing it together as stuff is in abundance with other growers? Like, how does that work?
It doesn't take up a ton of time. More so like trying to go and access these things and get them. It takes a bit of my time because we're not too close to anything over here. I try and time all of my pickups with my deliveries into the city, which I do once a week with the restaurant. So I try and make that brutal 2-hour drive back from Toronto as beneficial as possible. So I'll, contact all the growers that grow things that we don't grow, which is like we don't grow much fruit, things like winter squash, sweet potatoes, things that we don't grow, that we don't have the space to. We'll contact other growers, pick them up from them to sell at the store. And then there's a lot of like dry goods and imported stuff that I got to pick up in the city from some of my old restaurant suppliers that I've used in the past. To kind of fill up our pantry of like dried pastas, flours, grains, things like that. More high quality stuff. We do like more like mid-level and high quality things. So there's a bit of a selection there for everybody. But no, like it more so takes up time during the spring and the winter when the farm isn't producing quite as much, like in the early spring and the late winter, and we got to keep the shelves and the tables stocked. But come like August and July, there's not like an inch of space available in that store for anything. If there's like 1 square inch available, there's a cherry tomato going on that little part of the table, because we have so much stuff coming out of the farm. It's crazy. We always talk. I think that the store is kind of the perfect size. It's about 500 square feet, but in August and September, it's like, oh my God, this thing needs to be twice the size just to accommodate. But it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah. In terms of like, maybe elaborate a little bit on like taking payments and stuff. Like, is somebody there every hour it's open, or like, how does that work?
Yeah. We have like a Square system, like POS, that we take payments on. We're open 4 days a week. We're open Thursday to Sunday. That way, Monday, Tuesday, I really focused on farm work. And then Wednesday is when I go and do my deliveries in the city. And then Thursday to Sunday is all farm day, or is all store days, sorry. And my wife is there almost every single day. We also had, this past year, we had 2 store employees that were both part-time. Somebody there to help her on Saturdays, because Saturdays are just like a farmer's market. It's definitely our busiest day. There's a line at the door. People come in, and we always need to be replenishing, kind of rejudging the table to make sure things are looking good. We have a table filled with like pastries, and we do hot coffee and tea and stuff. So you always need a second hand there to, bag and, pour coffee and restyle things while somebody else is, ringing in the orders. But yeah, we, at one point we were talking about it. Could this be an honor system thing? But we're just way too busy for that. It is like a store. It's not so much like a roadside stand. It is a store. We have tables out front for people to enjoy pastries and coffee. And we just recently fenced in our whole backyard portion of the store, which we're really excited about. For more like cool activations, we want to do more markets back there and bring in like other makers during the season to, set up tents and do like makers markets. We did this past winter. This winter around Christmas time, and it was a huge success. The city, the whole town turned up. When you're doing something in a small town and it's kind of out of the ordinary, chances are everybody's going to turn out for it, because there's usually nothing to do around here. And it was a lot of fun. Just trying to figure out how we can do more stuff back there with, the limited staff and the limited time we have, because, I would love to do dinners and, host people and cook for people and have, the backyard be a space that's open every single day. It's just trying to find the time for me to do that. When I'm farming full time, it's kind of difficult, because with the farm and the store, it's almost like having 2 full-time jobs simultaneously, which is...
Yeah, it's a lot. Forgive me if you said this, but are you all doing anything with it over the winter, or is it kind of shut for the winter?
It's shut down right now. So we closed December. When did we close this year? We closed December 20th. So we stayed open a little bit later than we did last year, just so people could stock their pantries and their fridges for Christmas time, which I'm super happy we did, because our last day, there was not a crumb left on the table. We sold out of everything. It was amazing. But yeah, we just don't grow enough during the winter. I mean, where we are, we have 2 high tunnels, and we just recently built a timber frame greenhouse this year. But, there's no light in the sky for us to grow. You can throw as much heat as you want on things, but nothing's going to grow without any light. So we just kind of call it, on that first day of winter technically, and we'll open up likely kind of depending on how harsh the winter is and, how early of a spring we get. We'll probably open around the first week of May in 2026.
Very cool. All right, so we're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the technical stuff on the farm. Be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. All right, back to the show. All right, so something I haven't done a lot of on the show, at least recently, is run through sort of bed prep stuff with guests. So, Keenan, maybe if you would you be game to talk a little bit about how you started the gardens and then sort of like what your management style is?
Yeah, definitely. So that was kind of like my like when we first started, even thinking about this was like a huge question mark for me. I didn't really know where to begin. And luckily, there's amazing content out there, like this podcast. I binged this podcast for months before, sticking anything in the ground, just to hear as many, people's different accounts and their experience and what they did. And, trying to piece things together as best as I can for our context, because obviously not everybody's soil is the same. Not everybody's situation is the same. But we found what was going to work best for us was to just do one initial tillage of the plot. So we did this in our little Goose garden, which is that 3,500 square foot plot. We ended up doing the same with our large gardens. One initial tillage, tarped it for a few weeks while we kind of got our seeds and everything ready. And then we removed that tarp. I remember doing one more small, very shallow tillage just to kind of bust up some of that turf that was still there, because it was still basically a lawn that we were growing on. Just to bust it up one more time. And then trying to string out my beds was a little bit of a trial and error. That was trying to get everything centered and, make it look really beautiful and efficient. Mainly because the house was right there and Matty and his family were going to be looking at it all the time. I wanted to make sure it was very precise. And then we did the deep composting mulch system. So we brought in, quite a bit of compost. We have very good soil where we are. It's a sandy loam, maybe a little heavier on the sands. It's very free draining, but brought in a fairly decent compost, applied 2 to 3 inches per bed. And then at every bed flip, putting, a few wheelbarrows down, depending on what the crop was, following or before that. Like if it was something super hungry, like tomatoes or eggplant or something like that, we'd add a little bit more. And we still do roughly the same techniques now, even in the big garden. There's a few beds that I've noticed that things are going really well, and the soil has become really, really like this nice, like humusy, sticky texture, kind of like that cake crumb kind of texture, which it was not like when we first started at all. But we're not having to add as much compost as we used to. There's a few beds that we didn't even broad fork when we were flipping this year, which was nice to see and nice to do. We did end up purchasing a BCS this year, just to help, because we did open up quite a few new plots this past season. We grew the farm quite a bit this past year. And, I needed to do that initial tillage and, harrowing the beds afterwards. It was a huge help. I found we were just renting one from a local company before anytime we needed it, and the cost just didn't match up. I found if we bought one, it was going to, pay for itself pretty quickly. And if I was renting it over the next couple of years, it would have cost just as much as buying it. So we ended up biting the bullet and getting one, and it's been amazing. Very helpful. Yeah, we would love to incorporate more cover cropping into our farm, but as a lot of market gardeners know, it's this very lovely dream to have, but each bed I find just has to be so like overly productive, like almost like unreasonably productive in order for us to kind of, make our net at the end of the year. Um, so we ended up cover cropping about a third of the, no, not a third, about a quarter of our original plot this year, which is exciting to see. We're going to, I think, keep it in cover crop all next year. We're just going to put a spring and summer cover crop down. There's winter rye on it now. Incorporate that in spring and then put some peas and oats and things on it in the summertime. So that's exciting. Um, but I try not to, one thing I try not to get super consumed with a lot of the nerdy stuff. I feel the more I get like into that kind of thing, I just get like anxious and confused. Like pH and soil testing and all this stuff, it just kind of freaks me out. And I feel like I got to trust my instincts and my eyes and my gut with what I'm seeing. It's probably not the most efficient or, responsible way to do it, but it's what I always feel the most comfortable with. I'm very observational and, I don't know if like tactile is the word. I got to be able to like touch and feel things and like see it for myself. If I was just like reading charts and stuff like that, I don't know if it's my ADD that would, throw me off completely. So I kind of stay away from a lot of that stuff. You know, just try and follow my instincts. If a bed's looking like it needs, a lot of help or a lot of assistance, then, we'll address it as best we can. But we're really just fertilizing with some pelleted chicken manure, a little bit of alfalfa meal when it comes to like, arugula and some greens and stuff like that that need a quick boost of nitrogen. And then we compost. And then, everything gets cut at the root level, leaving all those roots in the ground. I found that's been an incredible help for keeping things intact and, sticky and like, really holding the soil together. It's been a very big help. But beyond that, no, it doesn't get too complicated for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's good too. And like, I don't know, sometimes I definitely feel you on the overcomplication, like how that can be very paralyzing, the sort of paralysis by analysis thing.
Right.
But at the same time, like oftentimes you can get pretty far with very, very simple, basic approach. And then you can always just, dial it in later and be like, oh, well, this, like you were saying, like I looked at this bed, production wasn't quite where I wanted it, added some alfalfa meal and some, chicken manure, whatever, and it went a little better. And if things were still not quite where you wanted it, you could add a soil test or something like that and keep working on it. But adding less in the beginning is a better idea than adding a lot in the beginning and being like, oh, I've thrown a lot of things off. This is not great.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm hearing you say it in the past too in your podcast is just keeping roots in the ground and keeping leaves coming out is for me the most important thing. And I find when things are, when I've got something in the soil, whatever's going to follow it is going to do a little bit better than the previous crop, just because of what it's brought to the soil, what we've left in the ground. I don't know. It's I feel like if I was to go at it from the other perspective or point of view, it would just become, I don't know, not too much of a job, kind of like it would feel like a desk job, farmer job, you know what I mean? Kind of like a hybrid, where farming is very intuitive and, I don't want to say the word spiritual, but I do feel that kind of way. Like I do look at this stuff as like, I definitely don't consider myself like a spiritual person by any stretch, but when I am farming, I do feel connected to something and very grounded and like seen and heard. And I don't want to sound corny like that, but if I was to like sit down and be looking at like spreadsheets of like, oh, this bed is produced X amount this year and X amount the following year, like I don't know, it would kind of take that wonder out of my spirit, you know what I mean? So I just try and look at the ground, feel the ground, and trust my gut as best I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough balance. Like, I feel you a lot on that element of like, I don't know, what the sort of romanticism that, being too business-like about it, too pragmatic about it, it kind of takes away from what I actually enjoy about it. So
Right.
like it's like finding a balance between making a living, making it function, and also just continuing to be able to do the things that I love about it. And yeah, that connection to the land is like a really amazing feeling. And also, I had a more technical question. How many beds are you working with?
So I think right now with what we added this past year, we're about 120. They're all 50
Okay.
footers, 30 inches wide. And then we have another small, like that's not including the little goose, which is like the little flower garden. So that's about 22 little 10-foot beds. And then there's a few raised beds in there that we grow some perennial herbs in as well. We also have another small herb garden that we're going to expand on. And then we have another small little garden called the New Goose, which is when we uh, devoted the little goose to flowers. I still needed and wanted a garden of kind of smaller beds as like a test plot
Mm.
because that's what I was using the little goose for once we kind of went down and scaled the farm to what it is now. I was just growing kind of one-off things that I was testing, things that kind of excited me, things that I didn't need a lot of, or that the chefs were kind of curious about. If a chef gave me a packet of seeds, it was a perfect kind of area for me to grow that on. So when we devoted that to flowers, we ended up uh, building out this other small little plot that's now called the New Goose, and it's about 20 10-foot beds as well. And this past year we grew a lot of cool stuff in there, a lot of artichokes, which I'm now feel like I've had enough success with that I can move onto a larger scale and 50-foot beds. We've got a good market for them at the store and at the restaurants. Everybody wants them, and I love them too. A lot of that is kind of dictated through what a lot of what we grow is informed through what I'm kind of passionate about and what Ashley's passionate about growing in the flower field. Um, Definitely listen to our customers and our chefs and what they're looking for kind of long term for like an extended menu item or an extended we definitely make sure we have carrots every single week of the year at the store, and we have our bag mixed greens every single day at the store. But I can only grow so much of baby arugula or Hackerai turnips. They're all delicious, but I would also love to see some like purple sprouting broccoli and some interesting Asian vegetables, or a cool radicchio that I picked up in Italy or something like that. So the cooking passion and my food obsessiveness kind of gets in the way sometimes of us being practical, but it all works out in the end. People like if I bring in like a pink radicchio or artichokes or Brussels sprouts on the stalk into the store, things that may have caught some of our customers off guard. We're there to walk them through it and to tell them about why it excites us and why it interests us and why it's delicious, and tell them about the seed supplier we bought it from, a recipe that we made with it recently. And that's been a big part of the store too, is just that education and getting people excited, getting them passionate about food and not being so intimidated by it.
I love the test plot thing. Like, it makes me think like it would be really fun for us to just have, I don't know, 5 beds that I could kind of do with as I pleased. And I kind of do that anyway. It's a bad habit, but maybe if I had 5 beds that were just like, 10 foot, 15 feet that are, just my own play around beds. Maybe I wouldn't treat the rest of my garden that way, but I love that. And Keenan, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about the farm. Love what you all are doing. I really, really appreciate your time. It's been very fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for the podcast. I speak for a lot of small scale gardeners out there. This thing has been one of the most useful tools for us figuring this whole thing out. So thank you. And thank you all your previous guests too for sharing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, I hope you all enjoyed that fun conversation with Keenan. Huge shouts to him for taking the time, and Ashley for all the work she puts into this project as well. And I will hook it up with links in the show notes for how to follow along. I really enjoy getting to hear about these various small farms. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I do. And shouts to Matty Matheson for helping get this particular farm up and rolling as well. We need more facilitators like that, for sure. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of January, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Doug, who was a bump up actually this week. Shouts, Doug. Thank you. Lots of bump ups lately. I just blown away. Thank you all. All right, so as you will recall from yesterday, our fisherman Gary has discovered that his creek bed is completely dry and has set off up the creek to investigate. Now, Gary is ex-military, but what I didn't tell you is that Gary was also in special forces, except for towards the end, he kind of got into the culinary side just because it was an interest of his. Actually, I don't even know if that's possible. So anyway, with the special forces stuff, he's really good at reconnaissance, even at an advanced stage. And so he heads up with the creek with that head full of knowledge, where it stays dry for almost a whole mile before he comes to a large building on the opposite side of the creek. It's sort of nondescript, just kind of plain white building, but he can tell that it has some sort of dam built next to it, stopping the water from his creek, clearly siphoning it off into the building. What is it? Well, that is for tomorrow on Cool Dam. Shame if something should happen to it. All right, thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you then. Bye.
One of the biggest challenges of earning a degree while on active duty is transitioning your lifestyle and goals from military service to academic studies. National University gets it. As a top educator of the U.S. military, they provide dedicated military support and advising services, credit for your military experience, and all the benefits of a military-friendly school. That's why 30% of their students are military affiliated. NU, education that serves those who serve.